Hello and good morning. Today is March 3rd, and we got the upcoming March cards revealed. So I'm really excited to talk about them. A lot of really, really powerful cards, and let's just get started because we're starting with probably one of the best season pass cards in a long time. Hope Summers, and so she's a three cost, four power card. Says after you play a card here, you get plus one energy next turn. Now, just to remind you guys how the format is, we're going on a five-star basis. On the top right there, those three images are going to be either the season pass for this card or the spotlight lineup. And then on the left, you'll see some synergies or talking points. And then, so yeah, this one's a season pass card. Three cost, four power. After you play a card here, you get plus one energy next turn, and I'm giving her five stars because I think you just play her in every deck. Um, it's an Electro um, that instead of getting the extra energy the next turn, you can kind of decide like, hey, this next turn I want a lot of energy, so you can play two minions in the lane, um, or you can play a Wasp there that same turn to basically just get a better Electro, right? So as long as you're playing minions into that lane, she's insane. She works really well with all the Elsa cards, so Falcon, Nightcrawler, Jeff, um, but Angela kind of stuff. All that stuff works so well with her, and she enables you to do ramp in kind of a different way, right? So usually you'll see like She-Hulk Infinite, and then you play Magic so that you can play the She-Hulk with the Infinite. With the Hot Summers, you don't even need to play that Magic, right? So you kind of skip out on needing to lose to some kind of limbo shenanigans. If your opponent legions you and shuts down your limbo or whatever. Jean, or not Jean, Hope Summers, and I always confuse the two, so I might accidentally call her Jean, but she seems really, really powerful. She opens up Odin lines so that you can, do the Doctor Doom Odin curve. You can do, six drop plus Arnim Zola curve. She works really well with Silver Surfer. Just Kitty Pride as well. So many different synergies. And honestly, I don't think you really need that many synergies for this to work out as well, right? You play Hope, and then on turn four, you play a minion there, and then you have six mana, six energy the next turn. You play Hope plus a Wasp, and then turn four, you can play Vision into the Hope lane, and then turn five, you can play whatever, six drop, right? So there's a lot of abuse that you can do. Um, with deck building. And so what I got was a just a Falcon list, so nothing crazy. Kitty Pride coming back. Elsa Bloodstone works really well with Hope because they both want you to fill that lane. And then Hitmonkey works pretty well as well with all that ramp. Um, Another thing, Black Swan. So you can play Black Swan along with Hope Summers and use a lot of one drops, and then maybe a high curve on top of that. Uh, Silver Surfer, like I said, just a whole bunch of different avenues, and I think this is gonna be a really good card that's gonna be all throughout the meta. Um, and I am interested in seeing if it brings back the Kitty Pride, also Bloodstone, maybe even Bishop and Angela. I'm interested in seeing if Hope Summers is good enough to bring those back, or if there's even better things that you want to be doing. No matter what, I think this is going to be the best card in a long time, and it's probably going to be in a whole lot of decks. Next up, we got Pixie. She's a two cost, one power. Oh, that is the wrong. Okay, well, I accidentally said ongoing. She is a on reveal, shuffle the cost of all cards in your deck that started there. Um, and so she was changed from what she was beforehand. If you remember with me, she was a one cost, three power, and it was for any card in your deck, so it didn't have to start in there. And so they changed her last month, which probably means that she was broken as a 1/3, my guess. And so as a 2/1, she becomes pretty interesting. So I would have been a lot more interested in her had Lockjaw not been nerfed, but Lockjaw's been nerfed as well. He's now 4 cost 5 power. And so, what can you do with Pixie, right? Because she's kind of that same vein where you want to have all these low cost cards and all these high cost cards, and then hopefully, they switch, right? You can compare it to Mr. Negative 2, um, but you get to play it 2 turns earlier and get 2 extra draws, but half of those draws are kind of dead, right? Like a 6 cost Wasp isn't going to help you. But a zero cost Magneto might be pretty neat, right? And then Mobius, allows you to play any cards that, you may have accidentally made cost more. Then Mobius will bring them back to their original cost, right? So that's pretty good. Jane Foster is probably the one that's going to abuse this the most, right? So you just stuff a deck with a bunch of 6 drops. You play Wasp, you play Yellow Jacket, and then Jane Foster is going to draw those cards after a Pixie, and then hopefully they shuffled with a 6 drop. So what you can do is you can play a 6 drop, a regular 6 drop, and then the 2 0 cost cards that Jane drew, and maybe those are other 6 drops, right? So a huge power play that you can do with this. You can cheat out something like a Galactus, right? So a whole lot of different stuff. Um, I'm gonna give her 3 stars though. Um, and so this is probably the hardest card for me to rate, right? Because you can do this, but you can also stuff your deck with 6 drops, and then oops, you drew a 6 drop that then shuffled its cost with the other 6 drop, right? So there's a whole bunch of like randomness that I'm sure people aren't going to love. Um, so that's the only reason that I'm not giving her a higher rating, along with Lockjaw. If you had Lockjaw as an extra game plan, you drew the Wasp early, so then you throw the Wasp inside the Lockjaw, then I would be a lot more excited, or not excited, a lot more scared of what Pixie could do. But she just looks like a really, really high rolly card that, as soon as you see a Jane, as soon as they play the Pixie and they're snapping, like maybe you want to leave, right? And so she's coming out with Mobius and Spider-Ham, some possible Lockjaw cards. We'll see. And so then here's the deck that I made, and I forgot to be reading them out loud, but I'll read this one out loud. It's a Wasp, Yellow Jacket, Pixie, Mobius, Corvus Glaive, Jubilee, Lockjaw, Jane Foster, Doctor Doom, Hela, Orca, and Magneto. And maybe you can toss in a note in here. There's definitely a lot of options. Crystal, maybe. I'm not even sure on Crystal. And so that's the weird thing is you don't want to have too many 6 drops because you don't want the 6 drops to be shuffling with the other 6 drops. Like you're fine with playing a turn 4 Magneto, right? If it swaps with Jubilee, just as an example. And so you gotta kind of figure out how you're gonna do it. So Corvus Glaive and Hela has been, pretty popular in ramp decks recently. So I wanted to toss that in. And just the idea of Wasp Yellow Jacket swapping with the 6 drop and your Jane drawing them and you playing 3 6 drops on turn 6 sounds really fun. So that's what I'm aiming for. Black Swan's pretty interesting. If you play a deck with 1 drops that then get swapped with a 6 drop, so now they cost 6, Black Swan doesn't care what the cost is. She doesn't reduce it by 1. She sets them to 0. So that 6 cost 1 drop that you drew off Pixie, after playing Pixie, will still cost 0 after Black Swan. Just a little tidbit that I wanted to throw out there. And some pretty cool variants that I'm going to be trying to show off at the bottom as well. So, pretty cool card. Then next up we have Mockingbird. And so Mockingbird I'm pretty excited for. She's gonna be 4 stars for me. Um, it's gonna be a 5 cost 9 power that costs 1 less for each card you have in play that didn't start in your deck. And then she's gonna be releasing with Miss Marvel and Man Thing. And I should say that the Miss Marvel spotlight is gonna change. It's a little bit of a cooler looking variant. Just as a heads up. But she seems really, really good with a lot of different applications that you might not have thought of. So, cards that in play that didn't start in your deck, so you have to play them out of your hand. So, the first thing you think of is anything that collector is going to proc off of. So, that isn't something bound. So, Agent 13, Nick Fury, Agent Coulson, Mariah Hill, Mirage. All those different cards. Once you play them on the board, we'll discount Mockingbird, and so when you're pretty happy, you're at 4-9, you're pretty happy with, 3-9, you're really happy with, and then after that, it's all gravy, right? Um, so Agent 13, all those generation cards, then cards that didn't start in your deck, so Thanos, obviously. And so what I'm not sure about is High Evolutionary. I'm not sure if those tokens count. But Thanos, she seems like an absolute slut, and that's the reason I'm giving her 4 stars is because she goes in and she seems like a staple for Thanos. Maybe you play her on turn 3, you just get a 3/9. Like, isn't that's just crazy? Literally, you just draw 2 stones on turns 1 and 2, and then you got a 3 cost 9 power, and that's it, right? Or maybe you slot her in with a Scar deck, and then you play her on the last turn, you play Scar plus Mockingbird plus whatever. Pretty gross. And so Mockingbird is also going to work off of summons for tokens, right? So Shanna, Squirrel Girl, Mysterio, Brood, just some examples of cards that are going to work really well. Maybe, funnily enough, if you can ramp out an Ultron on turn 5, then you have a 0 cost Mockingbird most of the times, which is pretty funny. Usually you don't want to do that, but maybe a 0 cost Mockingbird on turn 6 will change your mind, right? And so here's the deck that I made. I didn't want to just feature another Thanos deck because you literally just can play regular Thanos with her. But here's the zoo deck. So I got Ant-Man, Nico Minoru, Squirrel Girl, Dazzler, Shanna, Debris, Kyera, Khazar, Cold Obsidian, Blue Marvel, Valkyrie, and Mockingbird. And just another cool thing, if Nico Minoru hits the demon, then that demon is going to discount your Mockingbird, right? So just a whole bunch of fun things that you can do with her. And I'm sure that a 0 cost 9 power is going to be pretty useful for a zoo deck like this that I've been trying to make work. Ant-Man should slot in really nicely with that nice extra buff that they gave him recently. Really cool card. So, like I said, um, not sure how the thing works with High Evolutionary, so we'll have to see. Maybe it's even a High Evolutionary card if those evolved cards count as new cards that didn't start a new deck. A pretty cool Spotlight variant as well. I love this left one here where she's, in I guess 2 different dimensions. I don't understand Mockingbird's lore, so someone has to explain that to me. But it seems like a really, really cool card that I'm excited to get. Especially as a Thanos fan, it feels like a must-have, right? And then next up we have a bit of a stinker, but while I was doing this, I had an idea that kind of made me want to go up to 2 stars. So I have him marked as 1 star, but he'll be probably 2 or 3 stars. He's just a cannonball. He's a 5 cost 8 power. He's releasing with Kitty Pride and Ghost Spider. And so he's going to say on reveal, move the highest power enemy card here away. If you can't move, destroy it. If it can't move, destroy it with a rock. And so this was changed recently. It used to just move any random card, just like Stegron, and then even if it did move, it would still leave a rock. If it Right now it only leaves a rock if you destroy it. Kind of funny, um, kind of pointless also, but whatever. Um, and so Cannibal, he's kind of just a big Stegron. But with that recent change where he's going to prioritize the highest power enemy card, that does change a lot. So, we'll talk about the Stegron aspects first, right? So you're going to be able to kind of plan to move synergy. So Craven and Kingpin are going to work pretty well with this as a 5 cost 8 power that just moves into it and gives those guys a little buff or a debuff, right? And pretty funnily, you know, Blob is instantly going to be destroyed. So if your opponent, waves out a Blob, then Cannonball is the funniest possible counter where you're going to destroy it no matter what. And so I don't expect the extra text where, if you can't move it, destroy it with a rock. It's going to prioritize finding an open lane. So if one lane is full and one lane isn't full and you're playing him on the middle, he's still going to move them to the right. There's no chance he's going to like choose left and then destroy it if the right is empty. Does that make sense? Um, so maybe you can mess with Doctor Octopus or Debris or whatever in some kind of junk deck, but I really doubt it. Seems kind of mediocre. But the thing that I did think about that makes me want to move him from that 1 star rating to a 2 or 3 recently was he's a really good follow-up after Professor X, since he targets the highest power enemy card here. So usually what you'll see in a X deck is that they'll run Gamora, right? Because, once you lock down a lane, then you only have to win the other one. So you'll run Alioth, you'll win Gamora, and you'll just try to win that extra one no matter what, right? You just go all in on the other lane. And so what Cannonball does is if you ramp out that Professor X on 4, then this is just a way better Gamora because you kind of guarantee that winning that other lane because you're moving their highest power cost card there, and it's not moving into the Professor X lane as well, right? So that seems like a really good follow-up, and so maybe we see Thanos with Professor X, maybe that Miss Marvel Professor X deck or something like that could pop back up. But that's, other than the Professor X, that's all I see. But there is light in the tunnel. So I do want to say, I want to have it on this on the record that I'm giving it 2 or 3 stars, even though on the slide it says there was only 1 star. And so the deck that I had beforehand, because once again, I don't want to be showing another Thanos deck, is just a kind of weird move sentry deck. So you got the Hood, Craven, Jeff, Kingpin, Polaris, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Stegron, Sentry, Annihilus, Cannonball, and Magneto. And eh, the deck is probably better off choosing one route and running better packages on their, respective sides. But um that's what I got if you don't want to be playing a Professor X deck. Now, if you do want to be playing Professor X deck, I'd probably just recommend playing regular Thanos because that idea of curving Professor X and ramping into it with maybe Psylocke or something, and then following up with Cannonball and then, an Goliath or something sounds really good. But maybe it's just a regular Professor X deck. You play your Miss Marvel, you win the Professor X lane, and then Cannonball comes in on turn 6 and swoops him away. And so the funny thing is, we'll see later, but War Machine is also coming out. That's going to be kind of able to counter that plan. So a lot of interesting counterplay with this group of cards, I should say. That sounds really interesting, and a lot of Thanos support. That's kind of scary, but I'm excited for it as a Thanos enjoyer. And then next up, we have the probably the best card along with Hope Summers, and that's going to be War Machine. He's a 4 cost 6 power. Reads on reveal until the end of next turn. Nothing can stop you from playing cards anywhere. And so he's going to be releasing the Silver Samurai and Silk. And when I read this card when we were data mining, I I I was so sure. Zero doesn't work with Infinite and Ebony and Maw. So surely, surely, surely the devs are gonna say like, oh yeah, no, this won't work with Infinite and Ebony Maw. Surprise! It does. Glenn Jones responded on the official Discord to that question and said that yes, War Machine is going to be able to let you play Infinite and Ebony Maw anywhere, and basically give them Jeff-like effects. So you go through Professor X, you go through Storm Lane, you go through a hard to reach location like what's it? Not Death Domain, the one where you can't play anything there. Um, and so he makes everything a Jeff. Does Jeff see less play now because of this? I don't know. I just know that I'm gonna play War Machine and Infinite in every single deck. And another nasty thing I can do is I can go Hope Summers, and then on turn 5 I can play War Machine into the Hope lane, and I can go Infinite plus Ebony Maw on turn 6, or I can play Hope Summers on 3, War Machine on 4, and then turn 5 I can play an Infinite anywhere I want, and then a Taskmaster on turn 6. So really, really gross. Really, really, really gross. I'm not looking forward to this. It's another Sabu card as well, so not looking forward to that. And so it's 5 stars easily. I didn't even bother making a deck. I made a meme. So you can look at that meme. For those that are just listening, I'll just say it's Infinite and the Serial Guy, and he says he'll never be able to be played on 6 with no drawback, and then he spits out a cereal when he sees War Machine. I'm really scared of this card. This is really dumb that you can play Ebony Maw and Infinite, and I don't understand why without it, if this Infinite Ebony Maw thing wasn't a thing, maybe this is like a fine card, right? Like you do a funny thing where you play Storm and then you play War Machine and then you play Legion, and then that's kind of funny, right? Because then the Legion copies the flooded location and puts it everywhere. So that was funny, pretty funny. Maybe you play Professor X on, some I don't know. Your opponent plays Professor X, and then you can play into the Professor X, right? So use Professor X counterplay. If your Storm whiffs, right, then you can play War Machine to kind of fix that situation, right? Um, so pretty funny. And then he went from like a cool like niche scenario card to I'm going to abuse Infinite with this in every deck kind of card. And so I'm scared. I'm very scared. Um, maybe I was gonna say maybe you just play him in Black Knight, and then it's like you don't play him in other decks because the other decks can't really use Infinite if you don't draw War Machine. But you also have Hope Summers, which means that you can just play She-Hulk Infinite in every deck and War Machine, and then like sometimes you War Machine into Infinite, or sometimes you play Hope Summers and you skip, you play into it on turn 4, and then you skip turn 5, and then you play Infinite and She-Hulk on 6. Yay! Um, so I'm really scared, and this is really dumb, and I don't like this. He has really cool variants though, so that's nice. Um, thank you for watching. I'm terrified, so that's thank you, second dinner. The one thing I'm happy about is that we have a cool Shang-Chi variant, so be on the lookout for that. It's at the end of the month. But I'm terrified. So that's that. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing War Machine get nerfed.